Q&A session, and we welcome back to the stage all the speakers from today. Susana Simões, Edward Christie, Lívia, Leonardo Vieira, Vanessa Celoni, Daniel Assisi, Marcelo Neto, Andrea Marshall, and Julio Carvalho.
The moderator of the Q&A session will be Peter Hayes. Also, Jusada Korngold and Luiz Lima are also supposed to be up here too from this morning's workshop. Peter Hayes is a very active member at the Spiritist group Love and Light in Newark, New Jersey, where he is on the teaching staff for the education department. He has done lectures on the doctrine in Miami, Atlanta, the tri-state area, and the weekly live web study meetings via the United States Spiritist Council. Recently, he was involved with the editing staff on the new edition of the Spirits book that has been published by the U.S. Spiritist Council. He has also helped to edit the very first publication by the Spiritist group Love and Light, the English edition of Diary of a Counselor by Luis Gonzaga Pinedo, plus a second book, A Shipwrecked Life, written in English by the American Spirit Hercules and channeled by the American medium Jennifer Alata.
First, I would like all of you to join me in thanking our speakers for their incredible generosity and hard work. I once heard a rabbi say that the purpose of asking questions is to direct and guide thinking, to encourage thinking. And so with that, I'm going to ask a series of questions. Louise, this can pertain to the cells or perhaps not, but how can I teach myself or teach my body to love?
As we said this morning, love is a perception. So love has to be perceived. First, you have to feel it. You have to establish a connection to the source of love. And the source of love is not in this world. The source of love is God. If that connection is not established, if there's no path for that love to come down, you won't get to any cell. It has to get to our spirit first, our mind, our perispirit, and then it will be displayed in a certain form in our physical bodies. That connection is the must, is the starting path for this to happen.
Thank you. Jusada, question about Spiritist counseling. Licensed mental health and health practitioners have an ethical mandate to report child or elder abuse that is revealed to them. How does that fit within the requirements and responsibilities of Spiritist counselors?
We have to assume that very much like other religions, that when you go talk to your advisor, to the priest, to the rabbi, when people come to the Spiritist Center to talk to us, to share their things that sometimes they do not want to admit even for themselves, they are expecting that we are going to be discreet. So we have to use common sense and actually analyzing the situation. Perhaps if we are in doubt on how we should conduct ourselves, we should go and talk to the other directors and talk to representatives of the Spiritist doctrine and ask them what should be the best way of conducting ourselves. Like we said before, we are not here to judge. There are very serious situations that it's not just by, a conversation of 20 minutes that we can analyze everything that is going on, that is happening. But we have to, analyzing all of that through the conversation to see what the best course of action would be. It's a very important question. I think it's something that we have to be addressing, working together. to come up with a solution, because so far it would be that of, being omitted. But we have to look at the local laws and try to find out what should be our behavior when facing this kind of situation.
Okay, thank you. Susanna, if Jesus is the highest point of love, what are some problems we have that keep us from love?
I think unawareness. Really, we are created, as it was said by someone here today, Marcelo, I believe, simple and without knowledge. So we do have love, we are love in potential, but the journey is one to learn all the potentials, to develop all the potentials. So it takes awareness, and awareness is more than knowing, because we're here and we know so much. But awareness is a complex process where it starts with knowing, but then it needs to be integrated at your emotional and feeling levels. So there's so much that we know cognitively, and there's so much that we don't know emotionally. So the journey is to take what we know from our brains and bring it down to the heart, and I would go further to the gut, to the point that it's in us, and it's no longer a cognitive process. So the awareness, you don't know that you're a mortal being, you feel. It's you. So you don't have to think about it. We even though we know to be immortal spirits, our lives, our actions, and our thoughts do not reflect that necessarily, because it is still at our brains and hasn't come down to our hearts.
Okay, thank you. Edward, you cited views of love from Socrates, Aristotle, the Hebrew Scriptures, St. Paul, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas. Does one of these views resonate more for you than the others?
This is a question with a big responsibility on it, I'm afraid, and almost like a trick question. But one of the things that you find very quickly when you see each one of the 5 figures that I spoke of, this life is not quite enough for them. They have this deep passion to deliver a message to each one of us. And since we want so much from love in many, many different ways, each one of these speakers has something important to say to us at different times. Since the question has to do with my personal favorite, I mean, it's kind of a funny thing. Maybe I might have to press the like button, I guess. I have to admit it's St. Paul. Paul's main, how we know Paul is kind of odd when you think about it. It would be like learning about Einstein's theory of relativity through letters that he sent to his wife and friends. And what we know about Paul was not a theologian. His focus was on creating a community, creating love, to understand love. And I think the thing that really struck me is that for Paul, he has no problem laying down the rules. He knew, as a Pharisee, he knew what it was to follow the rules. But he understood that rules are for people and not people for rules. So he was willing to bend. He was willing to do everything because his focus was not on the rules, not on following a set of prescriptions. His focus was on developing a feeling of love within a community. And that, I think, is a great responsibility that each one of us has as members of our own centers.
Thank you. Next 2 questions, I will start with Livia and then to Leonardo. They are somewhat related to each other. Livia, if I'm going to reincarnate in the future, how do I know that I'm actually going to come back here to Earth? And therefore, why should I have to worry about this planet?
You don't know if you're going to come back. I don't, but the probability is that we will. Why is that? Because just look at it, your heart. Are we pure of hearts? Are we done with our evolution? I myself know that I will be back, and hopefully it was going to be in this very world, and I want to be the one who is going to be working toward a better world. Definitely, I don't think any of us here would like to be invited to visit other worlds in a less state of development. And that's what is going to happen, because that's the law of evolution. This planet is going forward. We have entered in the era of regeneration. And that we gave you here some proposals that are happening right now that are evidence, true evidence of this transformation. So you don't know if you're going to be back. I don't either, but I'll lie to.
Thank you. Leonardo, let's say we neglect our planet and it becomes uninhabitable. Can't we just go to a new planet if ours here is no longer fit to live on?
I wish I know the exact answer to that. But the only thing that we can ponder upon is the grace of God. God wouldn't have created us to say, okay, if you destroy this planet, if you err once, twice, 1,000,000,000 times, that you will be deserted someplace and not have another chance. And the only thing that we can ponder upon is the grace of God again. We talk about justice, we learn about justice in Spiritism quite a whole lot. We saw here today, we like to reason a whole lot, but we also reminded that the grace of God, the grace of our Creator, is beyond our imagination. We don't have the capability to even think of what it is. So on that note, we will be able to be given another opportunity in another planet. But in this planet, for sure, we will have to deal with our actions, with the effects of our actions. And we go back to what we said earlier, that we will be called to shed light where we brought darkness. We'll be called back to put it back, whatever we displaced. It's like that with our children, right? We see them putting something that is not supposed to be there. We ask, okay, go ahead and put it back in its place. Julio mentioned about the child making sure they're taking their toys and put it back in its place, and it's the same thing with us. So the actual answer is yes, we will have the capability to go to another place, to another planet, but it may not be in the same position as we are right now. Another question that I would like to pose to everyone is, why do such a thing? Why have to fix in the future what we can do right now? Do it right on the first time. Think that this is the last time that we have, and do it beautifully. Do it with joy. Do it with love. And we'll be talking about love here the whole day. And I think that's what we need to really focus on. And we also see this grace of God with one another in this event. When we see people here that we question yourselves, really, that if we're here today, it's because a few of other people who embraced this cause, who embraced us and said, look, let's learn this new science. Let me show you something else. Let me show you another way. It is the grace of God telling us, let's do it right, let's do it now.
Thank you. Vanessa, how do we love those who've neglected us?
I'm like the minions. From a scientific perspective, since the year 2015, there is evidence that we can work the trauma of being neglected because it's deeply rooted in our physiology. And that's the hardest part to change. But it's possible through writing our story. It's possible through visualizations. From a Spiritist perspective, it is actually in the process of reaching out to others who are neglected that we heal ourselves. And only neuroscience can explain that, because we have mirror neurons, and in the process of reaching out to others and helping them heal themselves, we are going to activate similar processes in our pathways, in the brain, and then heal ourselves too. So now neuroscience validates the Spiritist proposal in which it says, without charity, there is no salvation, meaning if we want to find the healing for the traumas in our lives, let's find those who are traumatized, because we have enough tools, and through that movement, we'll rebuild a new physiology in our spiritual brain and manifest in the physical brain.
Thank you. Daniel, how can parents get more knowledge on how to educate their children? And what if they're parents that are very busy with work?
Daniel's not here. Leave a message after the beep. How can parents gain more knowledge on educating their kids, especially when they're busy at work? Right? So we know, just to kind of lay the context really quickly, we know very many things because of research. We know that one-on-one attention is the most important factor on a kid's learning career. That is, whenever they get to spend time with their teacher on a one-to-one basis, kind of like a direct mentorship, we know that is the most important aspect in child achievement in general. And why do I say that? Because, of course, teachers are extremely important for that matter. It's why it's important to change the way we look at our educational system. But most importantly, because parents are the first teachers. Parents are the first educators. Therefore, it's very important for parents to be present. And I think that what we are also learning in education is we're seeing a shift. And I want to make a parallel here, so bear with me. We're seeing a shift in education where teachers are no longer the sage on the stage. They are becoming the coach on the side. That is to say, they don't have to have all the answers. They're not the public figure that comes here and spews knowledge onto everybody else, and you just open your heads and it magically goes in. And you speak to everybody at once. What they're really becoming is just coaches to help kids and facilitate that process. So you don't have to have content matter knowledge to help your kid learn. You don't have to know algebra or be a rocket science to help your kid with their math homework. You don't have to be Shakespeare to help them write their essays. You just have to facilitate the process, ask the right questions, and help be there for them so that they can develop to their best version of themselves, which I think is really reassuring for us. We ought to take this weight off our shoulders that we have to know everything at all times. If anything, we have learned through reincarnation that it takes a long time to learn many things, and there are many things that we don't know, and that's why Socrates was so wise. So let's take that weight off our shoulders and focus on that. I just need to be present and have an earnest conversation with my kids saying, you know what, I don't know how to do that. Let's find out together. So I think that's an important thing to do. Now, if you'd like to know more, and that's really great, there's great things you can do. One of them is, why don't you connect with your kids' teachers in school and say, what is it that I can do? What can I work with my son or daughter on so that they're better prepared to succeed? Not only academically, but then morally as well. And so you can also go out and seek that knowledge, right? But the most important knowledge is just love them. We also know through research that intellectual comprehension cannot happen when there is an emotional blockage, right? That's why bullying, for instance, is such a big topic for us, because if you are going to school or anything in your life and you're so emotionally built up that you're so worried about something, whatever it is, you are not going to spend time intellectually decoding things because you're so stuck emotionally, right? It's Maslow pyramids of needs. Like, you need to work on your basic needs first before you can intellectualize things. So create a safe environment, talk to them, be honest with them, and seek out help that's very readily available in your schools, in many different places, and there are many different courses and help groups out there, but just take some of the weight off your shoulder, that you have to be the subject matter expertise about everything, which is just not possible. And I think by doing that, you're going to be sending a powerful message to your kid, which is, there are problems in life that we cannot solve at first, but if we work hard at it and go out and find the good resources, we can tackle that with other people. And that's a really important, simple message for parents to kind of take on with them. And I hope you think about that, because the education of your child is truly an important thing. And I think we'll find that when you help your child get educated, you get educated too. It's a two-way street. It's a beautiful thing. So hopefully that helps. If there are specific things, now there's always specific things, right? There are children with special needs and so forth. There are other specific resources that you can also seek out and find. Seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you, but run after it. And they're out there. And if you have specific needs, we can always talk afterwards too and point you to some resources as well. But I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Marcelo. There are many people who don't believe in love anymore. How would you respond to that?
I feel so sorry about this, because love is our essence. We cannot live without love. If someone don't believe in love for a certain reason, that I don't know the reason, I would say you're missing something so important in our existence. If the one they're asking me this question is the one that don't believe in love anymore, please do. I know you might experience a few problems in relationships before, but there is hope. Try to do in a different way at this time. Because when I mentioned that woman that came to me in the Spiritist asking for fraternal counseling, and I'm not a psychologist, I don't have like the knowledge that many that are here have, but I think, and I am absolutely sure, try in a different way. Go step by step. Try to find a relationship where you are willing to give instead of willing to receive. When I say this, it's a different way of thinking, because when we give, we create a mode in our existence to receive in a different mode of life. Don't give up on you. Don't give up on others. I don't have the intention to answer this question with such a short period of time, because this is a process that sometimes takes one existence and sometimes take many existences. But don't lose time. Try to do it this time in a different way. I really would like to talk to this person after this reunion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Andrea, for someone who's in their second marriage, maybe their third or fourth marriage, should this person feel like they have failed because they have married more than once?
It is my opinion that it would be a no. It's not a failure. It'd be the same as asking, if we are spiritists, which we are, and we believe in reincarnation and the many coming and goings of the spirit, and we have had many marriages and sometimes it did not work out, or perhaps it ended because there was no longer mutual affection or emotional connection. Could we say that through the many reincarnations we have failed? Because the process of reincarnation is exactly the process for the spirit to evolve. And every relationship is going to offer us lessons that is very valuable for our spirit. But the question actually deserves closer attention to what the person may be seeking when they are in their third, fourth, or fifth marriage. And I don't mean to offend, it's just an example from a public speech that I heard from Raul Teixeira, in which he says that oftentimes people search for partners and they keep finding in the partner the very same problem that they encountered with the first and the second and the third and the fourth. And instead of trying to realize what it is that the relationship is trying to bring them as far as a lesson is concerned, they often give up and go forward to a new relationship. I don't like to state that anybody fails when something doesn't work out in their lives, because as a Spiritist, I believe that in God's infinite grace, we are given many chances to get it right. And in developing the virtues of the Spirit, whether it's in a conjugal relationship or one where we have with our siblings or our parents, our friends, in society, we find that in reality, every relationship is going to test us and offer us tools for the betterment of our souls, and that we can do the very same as well. I do applaud, and I do find that it's encouraging that the person believes in persisting in finding a meaningful relationship and trying to work towards maintaining it. And people have such a negative point of view on the aspect of divorce, and we got to talk about this, right? Because we only had 30 minutes, and the Gospel according to Spiritism talks about that. And we find even outstanding speakers saying that in reality, divorce is what? A human law that has been established to separate what indeed has already been separated emotionally. And not just that, it is better to place oneself in a position where if they separate, they maintain fraternity and harmony, especially when kids are concerned, as opposed to staying in a loveless relationship where they become aggressors at home and start disrespecting each other. And separating, but staying together in the aspect of being friendly and maintaining the harmony and maintaining even work together if able to. And of course, we take into consideration feelings when they're hurt, when they are hopeless, when they lose faith in love, as it was expressed here. But we find that God is so great that in a planet with 7 billion people, there will always be an opportunity for us to find a relationship where we may eventually, even late in our 60s or 70s, and find ourselves in a relationship that is meaningful and very valuable to us.
Thank you. Julio, if people try too hard to house their children's souls, why is that?
Repeat the question?
If people try to house their children's souls, to quote a comment you made, why do people do that? Why do parents feel compelled to try to control their children?
Try to house their children or control their children? Two different concepts.
House their children's souls.
That's because we have the illusion that they belong to us. Mm-hmm. Even the way we express ourselves makes us believe that they are ours, because we say, my son, my daughter, my husband, my wife. And these possessive expressions gives us an illusion that they belong to us instead of understanding they are with us. If we understand that our children are with us temporarily, it completely changes our actions towards them, because we will understand that we have to prepare them to have very successful lives. Now, what is the definition of a successful life to Spiritism? Successful life to Spiritism is not necessarily to have someone graduating from the best college and going on to a great career. It's about teaching them how to love themselves and to love other people. Here in California, there was a great educator who I admire very much, Leo Buscaglia. And he was a psychologist teacher in a very prominent university here. And one day he noticed that one of his students was not present. And he came to find out that that student committed suicide. So as a psychologist, this shook him to his core because he asked himself the question, what good have we done to this child by teaching her how to read and write, how to add and subtract, and we did not teach her the most fundamental teachings of life, which is love. And then he went on to teach love in the university, not sex, love. And what we learned from Leo Buscaglia is that love, it's not so much a feeling. Love is an action. It's what we do. That's how we can understand Jesus saying, love your enemy. Love someone that has neglected you. It's not to have the feeling that we have a friend, which is based on trustworthiness, it's based on affinity. To love an enemy is to do what we wish they would do to us. To wish them good, even though they wish us evil. Not to rejoice if they're going through pain. That is to love our enemies, which is an act. It's not a feeling. So when we have this understanding that we should act in the best way that we can to prepare our children for the world, we'll be fulfilling our mission. Because when we get to the other side of life, when we disincarnate, we're not going to see them anymore as children and daughters and sons. We're going to see them as brothers and sisters, all of us enrolled in the school of life.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to wrap up. I'd like to thank all of the speakers up here for your insight, and we will move on to the next program.